Hello, everybody. Welcome to Exploring Animal and Plant Science with Mr. Davenport. And today we are going to be talking about dairy production systems. Where does your milk come from? And we're going to start with looking at some dairy production facts and kind of get the timetable of how dairy products get, well, created by our bovine friends who develop milk products for us. So, today we're going to look and take a closer look at a product that we all consume, especially if you eat lunch at school on a daily basis. Whether in its original form as milk or in processed forms like cheese or ice cream, milk plays an important role in our diets. Healthy eating habits are important for growing bodies. So let's see if we can talk about the food guide pyramid. So the milk is so important that it actually has its own section of the food guide pyramid. And drinking low fat and non fat milk every day helps supply calcium that aids in bone development. And so it's recommended to have at least 3 servings of milk products a day. The USDA says that 3 servings of milk or milk products each day is important for a healthy diet. So let's think about it. Do we eat milk with cereal? Do we add cheese to some of the products that we eat? Do we eat ice cream? Do we eat yogurt? These are all dairy products that are a part of and should be a part of our daily diet in some way or form. So what we're going to talk about now is the steps in the dairy production process. So I'm going to change screens a little bit and change scenes so you can see things a little bit better. And so the first step in dairy production starts with a calf. Okay, so a calf gets born, and unlike cow-calf production and beef production, cows are housed in a hutch, which is an individual unit designed for young calves. It's meant to give them the space that they need and to protect them from the weather, but it also helps in permitting proper growth and health until they wean, until they stop using milk. So a typical hutch looks like this. Okay, kind of looks like a big old doghouse. During this time, calves are fed milk with a bottle or from a bucket, and that along with a few grains and a few forages, so grass and corn and soybeans, to help continue proper growth. This is an important segment of the dairy industry because it allows us to use the cow's milk for food products such as milk, yogurt, cheese, and ice cream. So, young calves are given a nutrient rich milk that we call colostrum. And immediately after birth, this is what they are given to be fed to help boost their immune system. It's normally comes from directly mother's milk to help boost their immunity from diseases. Shortly thereafter, dairy cows are separated from their mothers and they're placed into their hutches, and that is where they'll stay so that they can properly grow and have adequate health measures taken until they stop drinking milk. And so, again, during this time, they're fed milk with a bottle or a bucket and along with grains and forages to continue proper growth. So, mother's milk is used to provide dairy products for human consumption, like milk, cheese, yogurt, and butter. So, we're going to watch a little bit of a video that's going to focus on how hutches are used in dairy production.
Young animals need special attention. Mr. Armbruster will discuss some of the considerations included in calf management.
I want to talk about calf raising, and then we'll go on after the calf and talk a little bit about heifer and dry cow handling. Calves, immediately after they're born in the Midwest, we put them in what's called a calf hutch. And the little Jersey calf here is in a typical Midwestern calf hutch type housing. As you see, we have a large 4x8 hut. These can be made of plastic, plywood, and fiberglass. There's different types of material that can be used. Each calf has his own little playpen out in front, which is usually 4 to 5 feet long and that same width as the hutch itself. These hutches happen to be equipped with a nice place where we can put fresh water and concentrate for the young calf. Our calves, as I said, are put in here immediately after birth. We see to it naturally that as soon as the calf is born, and I like to say 20 minutes to a half hour after it's born, that it received colostrum. Also, what we're very particular about doing is dipping the navel or the umbilical cord with iodine, a 7% iodine, right after the calf is born. This is to help to prevent any type of bacteria or antigens getting in through that new opening. The calves are put in here. We do follow a ration of whole milk to the newborn calves. Important things that we got to remember no matter what type of housing, especially with hutches: dry, clean bedding, a nice front area, an exercise area. This should be replaced between calves.
Next step, where the calves go as they're getting older, is the freestall barn. And the freestall barn is the housing for our calves and for our cows after they come out of the hutch situation. So the definition of a freestall barn is a facility to house dairy cows that provides animals with a clean, dry, comfortable area for resting and also easy access to food and water. So a freestall barn typically looks like this, all right? And so they are not trapped in this building, okay? They can go out on pasture land, but this is where the food is. And so they have access to food and water, and it's a comfortable place where they can rest between getting milked. And so, like I said, the cows aren't restrained. They are free to enter, to leave, to lie down, to rise, to leave the barn whenever they want to. And so this type of care keeps the animals safe from environmental factors and can help prevent infections and diseases, since the freestyle barn is kept clean and dry. Now, in order to produce the amount of milk that we are trying to get from these cows, cows need to feed and eat 100 pounds of feed and drink 50 pounds of water each day. See, cows are able to produce more milk for our growing population. The feed that we feed them consists of proper grains and forages, and it helps provide the proper nutrients and vitamins for growth and milk production that are necessary so that these cows can produce milk so that they can be milked, and then the milk can be turned into products for human beings. Now, we're going to take a quick little look at what it looks like in a freestall barn in the step 2 production of dairy production.
Well-managed, healthy heifers are important to the dairy business.
After the calves leave the hutch area, and a lot of us put them in a group situation, I always say they go from the nursery into elementary school. We try and keep them in smaller groups so they adjust and acclimate to one another, usually in groups of 5 or 6. Then after they get to be about 3.5, again, depending upon space and availability of other space, we move them up into bigger groups. And after they get to be 4 months of age, 4.5 months of age, a lot of us used to neglect them at that time. We never worried much about nutrition. We fed what was available. But we found out now it's important to keep young animals growing. We like to talk about at least a 2 to possibly a 2.5 pound growth rate a day. So that takes a pretty good nutritional balanced diet to keep them growing. We want to keep them growing through that stage right on through the time that we want to inseminate them. So from about 4 months to 15 months, when we should definitely be thinking about or doing that first insemination, we want to have at least a 750 to an 800 pound Holstein heifer. I think a lot of us then, after we had them inseminated, would neglect them and to turn them out in grandfather's woods or take them down in the river bottom. And this we've found isn't a way to actually handle animals. Keep them growing, keep that growth rate. By this time, we got to be thinking about at least 2.5 pounds a day. We want a 1,300 to a 1,400 pound springing heifer. And by springing, I mean a heifer who's ready to calve. If she's going to support and carry that 85 to 90 pound calf, and if we expect her to give 75 to 95 pounds of milk per day, we have to have a heifer that's grown out well and is going to be have sufficient size to handle the production when we get her into the milking herd.
And we're back and we're looking at step 3 of dairy production, the milking parlor. So a milking parlor is a specialized area on a dairy farm where the milking process is performed. And there are dozens of different types of milking parlors, but all parlors in which milk for human consumption come from are inspected for cleanliness. Okay, they are USDA inspected. And so this is kind of what a modern milking parlor looks like. It's kind of elevated. They have the milking machines that they attach to the udders of the cow, and they basically milk these cows 2 or 3 times a day. And so milking parlors allow the dairy producers to milk their cattle in a clean, safe environment where they can be closely monitored. Now, a milking parlor usually is set up to milk cows 2 or 3 times a day, like I said, and typically 8 to 12 cows can be milked at one time on one machine. On average, a cow gives about 6.5 gallons of milk a day, and it takes about 500 pounds of circulated blood that circulates through the body to get the calcium, the proteins, all of the things that are necessary so that the cow can produce milk properly. Okay, now we're going to take a look at what a milking parlor looks like in a quick, short video.
Normally managed heifers calve and become cows at 2 years of age. They join the producing herd and begin a 305-day lactation. During the 10-month lactation period, the cows are milked twice daily.
The breed now coming in is the Holstein breed. Before I talk about the breed itself, I would like to explain the actual milking procedure. As you see, when the cow came in, Ed used a minimal amount of water. He is now taking a sample from each quarter. The mammary system of a cow is divided into 4 quarters, each quarter equipped with a faucet, or as we refer to it, as the teat. He will take a sample of milk from each teat, check for abnormalities and mastitis, and also this will help stimulate milk letdown. After he has checked each quarter, he will now take a paper towel and very carefully get all the excess water from the udder and the teat. We do not want water to get inside the inflation, that part of the milker that is actually removing the milk from the cow. After the milking machine has been applied we will actually watch and see the actual milk let down as it is dropped into the claw, or that portion under each teat cup. You'll now see the milk being dropped, taken from each quarter, dropped into the claw, and brought over into the automatic milk metering device, which will actually weigh the milk. The noise you hear in the background is called the pulsation. The pulsation is actually the opening and closing of each inflation as it is on the cow. Ed will point at the actual inflation, the inner lining of the teat, and you can actually see the opening and closing. This is how the milk is mechanically extracted from the cow. If we focus our attention now to the milk metering device, which this particular milking machine is equipped with, we can actually follow the pounds of milk as they are being milked from 3443. She is a 3443 is a just recently fresh cow, which means she just had a calf about 3 weeks ago. She is coming very close to her peak production, and she is at this point milking just over 100 pounds of milk a day. She will milk about 48 to 52 pounds of milk at each milking. We will periodically fall back on her milking and see just how many pounds will 3443 milk for us tonight.
And finally, we are at step 4 in dairy production, which is the processing plant. So the processing plant is where the milk goes after being picked up from the farm. So milk is collected from the farm and taken to the processing plant, where it goes through 2 different procedures: pasteurization and homogenization for our safety. So a processing plant is kind of like a factory that cleanses and processes milk, okay? And so these 2 purposes, milk is homogenized to reduce the fat globules in the milk to essentially give it a smooth texture for drinking, so that the fat globules that are in the milk don't help bacteria grow. The smaller the particles, the harder it is for bacteria to grow in it, and it creates a smooth texture when drinking. And then milk is pasteurized, which is a heat treatment that's used to remove harmful bacteria from milk. And so pasteurization was developed by a scientist named Louis Pasteur so that we would be able to kill and reduce the growth of disease-causing organisms in milk. So after they go through these 2 processes, the milk is all collected and tested for human consumption prior to being shipped to any grocery stores or used in any food or drink products for people.
After milk has been collected from the animal, it is typically placed in a milk storage tank or bin. The milk is then taken to a milk processor to pasteurize, homogenize, and fortify the milk to meet consumer demands as well as federal regulations. Pasteurization.
The pasteurization process is what we actually do to raw milk, and the milk is heated to 161 degrees for 15 seconds, and this is what's usually done in the United States. The importance of this process is to make sure that the milk is free from harmful bacteria. It's not completely sterilized in that it's not completely free from all bacteria, but there's no bacteria in the milk that will make someone sick.
The result leaves the milk with a fresh taste to meet the taste a consumer is accustomed to and demands. There are other methods of pasteurization, such as ultra-high temperature pasteurization, which is done in order to extend the shelf life of a refrigerated product, or to allow for a product to be stored at room temperature. Examples of this would be cream and pudding. According to the National Association of State Departments of Agriculture, there are 22 out of the 50 states who prohibit the sale of raw milk to consumers. Raw milk has been gaining momentum for being healthier, when in fact, raw milk is unsafe to be consumed and has been linked to causing foodborne outbreaks.
Raw milk was served to the general public in the early 1900s, and many people actually died from the harmful microorganisms that are in the raw milk. That's why we implemented pasteurization, and pasteurization has become a law in almost every state because it can contain harmful bacteria such as E. coli, which can cause death. It is definitely not a good thing to drink raw milk. Even though a few nutrients are destroyed during the pasteurization process, those are added back, and you get those nutrients from other sources. So it is very healthy and very safe to drink pasteurized milk.
Homogenization.
So when you have a milk product, the first thing most dairies do is they centrifuge the milk. So when you centrifuge it, the idea is to take away all the fat from the milk and separate it from the water. So that's how you get the different degrees of milk, whole milk versus skim milk. Well, when you're separating the fat component and the water component, if I were to put that into a glass, you'd have big globs in it. So it's very important to homogenize this product back together. Typically, that's a combination of heat and mixing rapidly to make it homogenized. So it gives you that smooth taste, whether you're drinking a whole milk versus a skim milk.
The fat in milk is present in irregular shapes and sizes, ranging from 0.2 to 2 micrometers. These globules, or small spheres of mass of different sizes, cause them to float, or cream, to the top of the container. Additionally, since water is denser than fat, cream is also created through the layers of the liquid. Non-homogenized milk is also commonly referred to as creamline milk. Pasteurized milk is not required to be homogenized, but the homogenized milk should be pasteurized in order to inactivate enzymes. These enzymes could create an off flavor, shorter shelf life, or rancidity. Rancidity is the decomposition of fats, which creates an undesirable flavor and odor to the product. The process of homogenization is done to decrease the sizes of the globules to less than 1 micrometer, allowing for them to be evenly dispersed throughout the milk. This process requires high pressure and high velocity through small holes in order to break up the fat. After the completion of homogenization, there is a higher concentration of smaller globules distributed throughout the milk. The original fat globules are surrounded in a phospholipids bilayer, despite the fact the membranes are broken during homogenization, creating smaller globules than before.
Keeping with what we've been dealing with over the course of the last few weeks, I want you guys to keep in mind the timeline. What stage happens for each level? Step 1, the calf lives in a hutch and is fed colostrum. Step 2, the cows live in a freestyle barn where they are allowed free movement and access to food and water so that their health can be checked up on and they can be looked after. Step 4, the milking parlor where the cows are milked. And step 5, processing, where the milk is pasteurized and homogenized so it can be shipped for human consumption. So with that in mind, that is going to end our video for today. That is going to take us to the end of our semester. So guys, I love having all of you in my class, and I can't wait to be able to have you back in my course under more normal circumstances. Have a great break, and I hope to see some of you back next year, either in the sense of the next calendar year or next year as actually being in my class. You guys have a wonderful day.